Now that we have set up our VST connections, let's record some audio. Open the example project number 14, Basic Recording. This project already has a bass and some drums recorded, so now we can lay down a guitar. Let's add a mono track by right-clicking and selecting Add Audio Track. For now, we're going to ignore the Browse button and click Add Track. Let's name our track Guitar Solo and select the audio input that we're using. In the previous chapter on VST connections, I created a mono input using input channel number 3 on my audio card. I've renamed this guitar. I now have a guitar plugged into channel 3, ready to record. Now let's click on the monitor button to hear the guitar. You may need to have a mixer or some kind of preamp attached to your audio card, since many audio cards don't have this functionality. You would need a preamp because the guitar signal is too low and needs to be boosted in order to be heard properly. The same thing applies to microphones. When you have the right amount of volume coming in, you can see the levels on the track. Now click where it says No Track Preset. This opens up the Apply Track Preset window and allows us to preview track presets in real time. Let's pick this one and then close the window. You may have noticed that the Show Active Inserts light has turned on. This is because when we added the track preset, it added the insert effects. Let's click on Inserts to see the effects we now have activated. We'll talk more about effects in Level 2 of this tutorial series. Click on the first tab in the inspector to get what we were looking at before. Your next step is to get the tracks ready to record. This is done by clicking on the Record Enable button. This may have already been turned on. There's an option under the Preferences window in the Editing submenu under Project and Mixer that allows you to enable record on selected tracks. I like to have this turned off, or else the Record Enable button will change tracks on you as you select another track. Now when I switch tracks, the Record Enable button is staying on the guitar solo track instead of switching to the new track. Now we can just hit the Record button in the transport and begin recording. But we should mention one other thing: input faders. Call up the mixer under the Devices menu or press F3. Make sure the Hide Inputs channel button is not highlighted so we can see the inputs. These are the inputs that you made in the VST Connections window in the VST Connections chapter. All of these buttons will be explained in the upcoming videos on the mixer, but I'll let you know that you can record the audio from your sound card dry, meaning whatever comes in gets recorded unchanged, or you can add some EQ or effects and record it, as we say, wet. We've already added some insert effects when we picked a track preset, but these are on the actual track and not the input. They're running in real time and are not affecting the recorded signal. The recorded signal is still our dry guitar sound. Here's the input that we are recording into. We can click the E button to call up the VST instrument channel settings. We can add effect inserts or change the EQ. This means I can EQ the bass out of my guitar before I record it, or I can put a compressor or a limiter on it. Generally, you will want to record dry, and you probably won't want to use this feature, but it does allow for advanced tweaking on input recording. Just remember, anything that you do on this fader can't be undone later. Okay, enough of that. Let's get recording. Make sure cycle is turned off, unless you want to do loop recording. Make sure the pre-count is on so you know where to come in. Press rewind, and now the record button. Press stop and turn off the Record Enable and Monitor buttons. Let's listen back to what we've just recorded. And that's it for basic recording. Continue on to the next chapter recording details. Let's take a deeper look into recording audio. Load up project number 15, recording details. In the previous chapter, we recorded guitar. See how the guitar audio file was named? Cubase took the name of our track, Guitar Solo, and placed an underscore after it with the numbers 01. This is why we have to name the track before we start recording. Now let's punch in and out super fast and see what it does with the naming. Let's put the Record Enable button on, but not the monitor. This way we don't have to hear what we're recording, since we're really recording nothing for this example anyways. Press play first, and then press the record button multiple times so that we create separate guitar recordings. Don't worry, this isn't the punch in and out tutorial. We'll go more in depth on the topic of punching in level 2 of this series. Let's zoom in on these newly recorded parts by clicking once on the ruler and moving the mouse down. The last two numbers in the audio file name are changing. This will continue to increase as you record more. Now that you know this, you won't be confused by Cubase's naming. Now there is one exception to this naming rule. In the Preferences window, click on Editing. You'll see an option called Parts Get Track Names. If this is activated and you move an event from one track to another, the moved event will automatically be named according to its new track. Otherwise, the event will retain the name of the track it was previously recorded on. This works perfectly with MIDI parts, but you need to know something about audio events and parts. Make sure you see the chapter called Events Parts and the sample editor in level 2 of the series for a super clear explanation. Basically, an audio event is a piece of audio like this drum loop. When I move it from track to track with the Parts Get Track Names option turned on, the audio file does not change name. But if this audio file were a part, let's choose Events to Part from the Audio menu, then the audio part's name changes. The audio event is in this audio part, and it's the part name that changes, not the event name. You may not like the name that was recorded, or you might plan to change the names of the files for better description. Make sure the event info line is showing by choosing it in the window layout section. If you see the words No Object Selected, make sure you click on the audio event you wish to change. Now we can see lots of information about the audio file in the event info line. You're able to change the name of the audio file directly on the hard disk in this spot. Be careful when naming files and don't forget to save the project right away. This is to make sure that the Cubase project saves and knows about the audio file name you've just changed. If you cut the audio file in half with the split tool, you'll see that the description for both cuts are the same. Let's change the description for the first one and then the second one. Using the description is helpful if you have an audio file and you're using different pieces or cuts of it along your timeline. Just another handy feature to allow your work to be more descriptive. Using the description is helpful if you have an audio file and you're using different pieces or cuts of it along your timeline. Just another handy feature to allow your work to be more descriptive. You now have a better idea of how Cubase names and manages its recorded audio files. File management is 90% of the battle when recording in audio programs. Just a small note, when I cut the audio file in half in Cubase, the audio file on the hard drive is unaffected. Cubase just reads the audio file from the hard drive and then stops reading. It then continues reading in the middle of the file and then stops again. So don't worry about cutting, copying, and erasing like crazy all over the project page. It's non-destructive. Last but not least, let's talk about monitoring. There are different ways to monitor the incoming signal in Cubase. Go to the Preferences window and click on VST and select the pop-up menu beside Auto Monitoring. When we recorded guitar in the last chapter, we recorded in manual monitoring mode. This means that we get to choose when we hear the incoming signal at any time, either while Cubase is recording, playing back, or when stopped. While Record Enabled is exactly like it says. Whenever you press the Record Enable button on the track, the monitor button turns on too. While Record Running means that if you press the Record button on the transport bar, the monitor button will come on for the track that has the Record Enabled button on. Tape machine style is a popular one. This emulates standard tape machines. input monitoring in stop mode and during recording, but not during playback. So when you play back, you hear what is on the track, but when you stop or record, you hear the instrument coming in from the inputs of your audio card. This is perfect for a vocalist recording overdubs. Now you have a pretty good understanding of recording. Now let's look at looping.